What's going on, guys? Today we are going over Mundus Stones and everything you need to know about them. So what are Mundus Stones? Mundus Stones are large stones scattered around Tamriel which can give you small bonuses to your character. There are 13 Mundus Stones in all, and each provides a small bonus and a different stat ranging from max magic to increasing the damage of your critical hits. Mundus Stones are found in each alliance zone and also in Cyrodiil. Mundus Stone effects can be increased by an armor trait known as Divines. At gold, it increases the Mundus Stone effect by 9.1% per piece. In this video, I'm going to order these Mundus Stones from the worst to the best in my opinion. They will be structured in the most optimal way to cover most builds for PvP. All Mundus Stones are good by nature, some are just more beneficial than others. Without further ado, let's get right into it. For the worst Mundus Stone, we have the Lord. So the Lord increases your maximum health by 2,225 at base and adding 3,642 health with 7 legendary divine traits. The Lord I can only recommend for 2 types of builds: health tanks and werewolves. Anything else I really don't suggest the Lord, as it doesn't help any normal builds. The reason why it's so good for health tanks and werewolves is most of their healing is based off their maximum health, meaning the more HP you have, the more you get healed from those skills, which in turn makes you tankier. All in all, the Lord is okay, but for most people it's kind of trash. You can find the Lord Mundus Stone in the northeast side in Stormhaven. Also, you can find the Lord in the north side of Deshaun. And finally, you can find the Lord in Grotwood at the west side. So for the next Mundus Stone, we have the Ritual. It increases your healing effectiveness by 8% at base and adds 13% with 7 legendary divine traits. The Ritual is an option for healers, especially since the nerfs of major and minor buffs like Vitality, Protection, and Mending. If you have enough magic sustain, the Ritual could be best in slot option for healers in PvP. Overall, that would be the only role I would suggest the Ritual to be on, is a healer. Anything else I can't recommend it, as it doesn't really help you for any damage or anything like that. You can get the Ritual in Malbal Tor, Alakir Desert, and Eastmarch. So in Malbal Tor, it's on the south side. In Alakir Desert, it's on the north side. And finally in Eastmarch, the Ritual is on the east side of the map. The next Mundus Stone we have is the Lady. So the Lady adds 2,744 physical and spell resistance at base, and it adds 4,491 resistance with 7 legendary divine traits. The Lady is an overall decent Mundus Stone. I don't suggest running this on most builds, but I think if paired with a set like Twiceborn Star, you could get some unique and non-meta PvP builds with it. Overall, the Lady is just okay. The added resistance is alright, but on most builds this really won't help too much in PvP. It can help some light armor builds with enough sustain and damage, but ideally, right now, heavy armor is best in slot for tankiness. You can find the Lady in Glenumbra, Stonefalls, and Aradon. In Glenumbra, the Lady is on the south side. In Stonefalls, it is on the east side. And finally, in Aradon, the Lady is located on the south side of the map. For the next Mundus Stone, we have the Tower. So the Tower increases your maximum stamina by 2,023 at base, and it adds 3,311 stamina with 7 legendary divine traits. So when max stats were the meta, the Tower was a beast of a Mundus Stone, but now that weapon damage is king, for stamina builds, the Tower has just become just about obsolete. You can still run the Tower with a maximum stamina build like Hulking Draugr and Bone Pirate. That would be decent, but again, things have changed and the meta has shifted. You can find the Tower Mundus Stone in Stormhaven, Deshaun, and Grotwood. So in Stormhaven, it is on the west side. In Deshaun, it is also on the west side. And lastly, in Grotwood, the Tower is located on the southeast side of the map. So for the next Mundus Stone, we have the Apprentice. So the Apprentice increases spell damage by 238 at base, and it adds 389 spell damage with 7 legendary divine traits. The Apprentice is not a bad Mundus Stone, just typically most magic builds can't or won't build high spell damage specs. Only Templars probably can build for high spell damage, but even then the damage is still very low just because of their penetration. All in all, I don't recommend running the Apprentice unless you have enough stain and pen to go for the extra spell damage. If not, I don't think it's worth it. The Apprentice is found in the Rift, Bankerai, and Reaper's March. In the Rift, you can find the Apprentice on the north side of the map. In Bankerai, it is on the northwest side. And finally, in Reaper's March, you can find the Apprentice on the northeast side of the map. For the next Mundus Stone, we have the Thief. So the Thief increases the critical strike chance by 7% at base, and it adds 11.4% with 7 legendary divine traits. I think this Mundus could be good for some builds, so adding crit chance isn't always a game changer. I remember when the Thief was best in slot for PvP stamina builds. Because of the increased critical chance of healing and damage, I don't see it coming back to its once greatness, but I can see it being viable in heavy armor without Malakath, or on a high crit chance build. I'll definitely have to try some of these out, but hypothetically, this is what I would do with this Mundus Stone. You can get the Thief in Malbul Tor, Alakir Desert, and Eastmarch. In Malbul Tor, it's on the north side. In Alakir Desert, it's on the far east side. And finally, in Eastmarch, the Thief is on the southwest side of the map. Next, we have the Shadow. The Shadow increases critical damage and healing by 11% at base, and it adds 18% with 7 legendary divine traits. I think the Shadow is pretty decent now, especially since the endpin nerf. It has definitely made it more viable. Since the nerf, running full divines has become best in slot in my opinion. With that being said, running a crit damage build isn't too bad of an idea now. Since people are so scared of Malakath, they maybe drop their critical resistance lower than 2000. Overall, the Shadow is definitely better than it used to be, but I don't think it's the best Mundus for right now. You can find the Shadow in Greenshade, Rivenspire, and Shadowfen. So in Greenshade, it is on the east side of the map. In Rivenspire, it's on the west side. And finally, in Shadowfen, it's on the northwest side of the map. So next we have the Mage. So the Mage increases your maximum magic by 2023 at base, and it adds 3311 with 7 legendary divine traits. The Mage is still the best option for max stacking builds. The Mage is kind of just lackluster now. While it still is good, the meta has definitely shifted, making the Mage a less used Mundus. Overall, I only recommend using the Mage if you were going to run a max magic stat build. If not, I can't recommend it. If you're wanting to use the Mage, you probably need to have around 45,000 magic or more. So to get this high max magic pool, typically run Necropotence and Crafty Alfleek. So for Necropotence, you have to run a pet, which can be annoying on some classes, but classes like Necromancer, Warden, Sorcerer, and Nightblade all have class skills that give them the Necropotence bonus. You can find the Mage Mundus in Stormhaven, Deshaun, and Grotwood. So in Stormhaven, it is on the southwest side. In Deshaun, it is on the northeast side. And lastly, in Grotwood, the Mage is located on the east side of the map. Next, we have the Lover. So the Lover adds 2,744 physical and spell penetration at base, and it adds 4,491 with 7 legendary divine traits. The Lover has honestly been making its way into a select few of my builds. The damage is actually kind of underrated, as it's an unseen stat that many people don't realize. The Lover is fairly decent for magic builds, as well as some stamina builds. Overall, the Lover is a niche Mundus. It isn't very popular, but I believe in due time, it could become a meta Mundus for some builds. You can find the Lover in Glenumbra, Stonefalls, and Aradon. So in Glenumbra, the Lover is on the northeast side. In Stonefalls, it is on the southwest side. And finally, in Aradon, the Lover is located on the northern side of the map. So for the next Mundus Stone, we have the Warrior. So the Warrior increases your weapon damage by 238 at base and adds 389 with 7 legendary divine trait. This is still probably the best Mundus Stone for most stamina builds. Here lately, I have been running the Serpent, but on some of my builds that doesn't need the extra sustain, I get the extra damage from the Warrior. It is definitely a help. Plus you get the extra healing power as well. I can see the Warrior working on high weapon damage builds to just beef up the damage even more. Overall, the Warrior is the best bet for stamina builds in open world PvP right now. You can get the Warrior in Malbul Tor, Alakir Desert, and Eastmarch. In Malbul Tor, it's on the west side. In Alakir Desert, it's on the far west side. And finally, in Eastmarch, the Warrior is on the north side of the map. The next Mundus Stone we have is the Steed. So the Steed increases movement speed by 10%, and it increases health recovery by 238 at base, and it adds 16.3% movement speed and 389 health recovery with 7 legendary divine traits. I have been really enjoying the Steed Mundus Stone, especially when outnumbered. The movement speed is insane. It adds so much unseen survivability, it's actually kind of crazy. Being able to kite people for days is always nice. The HP recovery is just a nice bonus, especially whenever you're running stats like Eternal Vigor and food like Artaeum. You can really get some high health recovery. Basically, the Steed just adds tons of passive survivability, which in my opinion is really needed this patch. Overall, the Steed is mainly built for stamina builds. I recommend using it in heavy armor, maybe not so much in medium. The Steed is basically just a utility Mundus Stone, and I can't recommend the Steed enough. You can find the Steed in the Rift, Bankerai, and Reaper's March. So in the Rift, it's on the southeast side. In Bankerai, it's on the east side. And finally, in Reaper's March, the Steed is on the west side of the map. The next Mundus Stone we have is the Serpent. So the Serpent increases stamina recovery by 310 at base, and it adds 507 with 7 legendary divine traits. The Serpent is one of the best Mundus Stones for stamina builds right now in the Elder Scrolls Online. Reason being, you can run 2 damage sets with Artaeum food and get about 2000 stamina recovery or more, depending on the race and class buffs. This is one of my favorite Mundus Stones as I get so much multiplicative recovery to have endless sustain. Fighting outnumbered, you need all the sustain you can get while also maintaining a lot of damage with your sets. You can find the Serpent in Greenshade, Rivenspire, and Shadowfen. So in Greenshade, it is on the far west side. In Rivenspire, it is on the northeast side. And lastly, in Shadowfen, you can find the Serpent on the west side. And finally, we have the Atronach. So the Atronach gives 310 magic recovery at base and adds 507 with 7 legendary divine traits. Since its most recent buff, this is the best Mundus Stone for magic builds in my opinion. Having the Atro gives you room on magic builds to run 1 damage set and 1 tanky set while still having the extra recovery from the Atronach. Overall, you get the most bang for your buck with this recovery Mundus Stone right now on Markarth for PvP. As recovery is multiplicative with CP, you get way more than 500 recovery from the Atronach with 7 divines. You can locate the Atronach in Greenshade, Rivenspire, and Shadowfen. So in Greenshade, it is on the north side. In Rivenspire, it is on the south side. And finally, in Shadowfen, you can find the Atronach on the south side. And that's all for the Mundus Stones, guys. I hope this video maybe gave you a different perspective on Mundus Stones. Overall, my favorite Mundus Stone is probably the Steed. I just like being able to move fast and outmaneuver my opponent. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.